great to see you. Oneness evolving here. Outside on my front lawn. I'm grateful that it's not raining. It hasn't really rained, but it was mizzling before. Let me show you the day. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful? I love the sky. And if this is the first time you've jumped on YouTube, because if you're going to join me live on Facebook, you won't be seeing this, because you never do when you join live. You only get to see this on the replay. I do this. Hi, Catherine. My God, you must have been sitting on it. Lovely to see you, sweetie. I do this because it takes a little time, often, not always, as is demonstrated, for people to actually realise that I'm live and for my husband to see the video and share it out. Hi, Mike. Good to see you. And so and you can see it's been wet. But not very wet, and so I just show you a bit of the garden. I just love this fuchsia. It's beautiful. Everything's fabulous when it's got raindrops on it. And look at this. This is a leaf that's fallen off the apple tree, neighbour's apple tree, and it's just so yellow. I'm enjoying that. And look, this is the big thing. This used to be all covered with something, and now it's not. And it's got to grow back, you know. I have to wait a week or so and then weed it again, but suddenly we have ground and there are lots of things that will grow up from under here. So anyway, you can see that there's a big fat iris, and look, this fuchsia is still going strong. Let me step over here and show you the inside. I love these flowers. They're just very elegant. I don't know why, but they are. And I'll step back. Look, you can see the cherry tree starting to drop its leaves, which means it's starting to turn, and I'll see if I can show you the colour. It's not really so obvious. Oh look, there's a tui up there flittering around. But yeah, the autumn colours are coming, and actually what I really enjoy is this magnolia at the moment. I don't know why, these beautiful just browns and yellows, and everything starts to fall, and that's why it's called the fall. And I've noticed that my kawa tree is perhaps on its way out, don't know, but it's been around for a while, and they're not really a long-lived species. I've kept it going by pruning it. And look at this luxurious carpet of violets, of all things. And you can see it's a white one. There's a one flower there, so that'll come out and that'll be nice. Oh look, this one's actually out. It's a little pompon. Just got to dig it out here. It's a little pompon flower. Hi, Marilyn. Lovely to see you, sweetie. And you'll just have to imagine the smell. These violets are so beautifully scented. So I'm looking forward to this. In a little while they'll be all covered. There's actually more of them, you know, they're being shy. It's more of them than is obvious, but soon enough they'll start to poke out. And that's what's left of the mulching heap. I'm very proud about that. So this is the garden as the leaves are starting to change and turn. And maybe you can see the colour on the cherry tree from here. The camera doesn't always pick it up perfectly, but there you go. That's the panning shot. And look, this is all just coming up. And I fertilised it this year. So I think we're going to have some more colourful flowers when the Spiraxis do their thing. And there's always more to do. But this is the garden. And now I'm going to swap this around and go inside and tell you what I've been doing today for God of me. This project that I work on one morning a week, because that just seems to be the only thing that works for me to do it. I find myself wanting to do it more often. But the thing is that I really need to be able to settle in and work for a good space of time. I was trying to do it just a little bit, you know, I've got half an hour here, an hour there, and it doesn't work. I need to be able to get my head in that space and forget about everything else. And so I only get to do that once a week. And so I make the most of it. And when I've done that, which I just have, I get online here and I tell you what I've done. And so that's how that works. So I come inside because it is actually still slightly damp out there. Little tiny spots on the phone, but it's no problem. But I'm not going to stay out there and let them get bigger. So, my little trusty notepad. So last week I finished explaining what an electroencephalogram is And I'm talking about electroencephalograms because I'm talking about brainwaves. So I want to talk about brainwaves. And to talk about brainwaves, you have to say, well, how do you measure them? What is the brainwave? You know, it's like we all understand, but what if we all are not who this is for? Or I want this information to make sense to anybody. And maybe they've never, you know, I mean, how do you know what a brainwave is? So you're going to talk about being able to actually see them in an electroencephalogram as a way to see what a thinking brain is doing in real time. And so I finished doing that. I looked over it last week, and then I wrote about frequency. And so this week I can always revise what I did last week. This is what I do. It works for me. I went back and I tweaked that and tidied it up and thought, okay, this is really clear. Unpacked a few things that I'd missed out. It's normal. I find steps that I've missed. And I don't like to miss steps, because when people are learning an unfamiliar concept, if you just miss one thing and they don't understand you, that's it. The rest of it's gone. We can't put it together if there is a gap. So I take the time to unpack it properly. And I know I did find some interesting holes. I haven't written down what they were, but that doesn't matter. So, so I finished explaining frequency, and I thought, yay, I'm finally, hi Nori, I saw your little face come up. It's lovely to see you. I'm finally talking about brainwaves, yahoo! Having explained that frequency is, well, what is frequency? What is that if you've never heard that word before? What does that mean? So, because I've got pictures of brainwaves, right? I've got pictures of electroencephalogram strip charts which show brainwaves, and the two that I have are nice and simple. I've only got 8 channels. I found out today that an electroencephalogram can measure anything from 4 to, wait for it, 256 locations on the brain. Imagine a strip chart with 256 lines of wiggles on it. That is a really comprehensive electroencephalogram. However, the strip charts that I've got, which are from Wikimedia Commons, so I can use them, there's 8 channels, which is really nice. And one of them is in the alpha brainwave state, one of them is in beta. And the main thing you can see is there's 8 lines going across, but one of them, they've got more wiggles in them than the other. So why? How come we have these 2 measurements of working brains, and why is one going faster than the other? And if you have never been exposed to that concept before, and maybe you've never learned what frequency is either, I can't just say, well, it's because one's working faster than the other, and one's in alpha and one's in beta. What the hell does all that mean? So frequency, I looked that up in the Oxford Dictionary. I looked it up on the interweb, and I like the Oxford Dictionary definition. And that really is the rate of how often something happens in a period of time, for the purposes of what I'm writing. So I just unpacked that a little bit, because in one of those, a little bit more, because in one of those pictures you can see 9 wiggles in a second, and the other one you can see 19. So obviously that brain is working faster. So we've got to make all the links. Well, why is the brain working faster? It's processing more information. All right, so the brain goes faster when it's got more information to process, and the more information it has to process, the faster the frequency of its firing. If it's got less information to process, the slower its frequency of its firing. And so, okay, now we've actually got this kind of framework to think, okay, 1, you can measure a brain. 2, that gives you something that shows you a frequency. And 3, what does that mean for the brain? Well, it means it's working faster or slower. And 4, that's because it's processing more or less information. You actually need that. Otherwise, talking about brainwaves is like, what the hell does that mean? So now, finally, I start talking about brainwaves. And the first thing I realised, because I have this lovely chart that shows that there's 5, more or less 5 different sort of ranges of brainwaves that can be measured. There's delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma, right? Just what's acknowledged. And the first thing I realised was, because I had the whole chart there, and I thought, I've got to redo this so it just shows delta. Because again, otherwise you look at it and think, well, what does that mean? I don't know. I understand that there's these 2 pictures where one's wiggling faster than the other, but I don't know. I mean, this is just a big picture with a lot of wavy lines on it. So what? So I redid the picture. I went into my, my photo editing, image editing software, and I did it, and I had to fiddle about with it so that I've just got the delta brainwaves, and that's the picture that I'm now explaining. And then I thought, okay, because remember, this whole thing is in the context of we make a bunch of unconscious memories. Hi, Kristen. We 95% of us, the part of us that we want to change, 95% of us is unconscious or subconscious, and the 5% of us is conscious, wants to change the 95%, and there's no freaking idea how to go about doing it. And that was me. That was me. I did not understand that the part of me that can make a conscious choice and say, I want to feel better than I do right now, didn't stand a shit show in changing the other 95% because I didn't know how. And to understand how to change that 95%, you actually have to understand about brainwaves. So this is why we're talking about brainwaves. So, also, and I've got to build this whole picture, otherwise this doesn't make sense. Before we are born, like there's 9 months, we're inside our mother. And what memories do we have? Because that's all part of the 95% too, right? Well, we have the genetic memories that we inherited from our parents, which tell our body how to grow. And we also get genetic memories about how we think and what we're good at and what we're not good at and what we feel easily and what we don't feel easily. There's a bunch of genetic memories that we inherit. And then there's also the experiences that we share with our mother through her bloodstream while we're inside her. That's a fact. Whatever your mother experiences, chemically, you have that experience too because you share the same bloodstream. So there's already a lot of memories in place by the time you're born, and that's important because you need those. Your body needs the programs like Windows operating system or, the iOS for Apple. It just tells it, how to switch on and what to do and, how to eat and cry and poop and sleep pretty much. But now you're outside your mother, your body's your own, although you hardly know it, you're still a psychic unity with your mother. And you start having experiences. And so there's a ton of information that you're having, eyes, ears, nose, taste, skin, which is just coming in all the time. And see, this is a cool fact that I learned. But when we're born, most of the neurons in our brain, apparently, that we have, most, not all, because we can actually grow new neurons. That's understood now. It wasn't 20, 30, 50 years ago, whenever it was. Most of the neurons that we have through our life are in our brain, but they're not connected. There's neurons. A neuron is a thing that's kind of like a tree. Not really. I mean, there are lots of different sorts, but it's easiest to visualize one. It's got a long trunky thing. It's the axon, and at the bottom there's like roots, the axon extensions. At the top you have the cell body, or sometimes in the middle, but at the top we'll say you have the cell body, and then you have all these things off the top, like the branches of a tree with leaves on the end. Those are the dendrites, and axons from another neuron have to make connections with the dendrites. And that's, when you have those connections, those are memories. So you've got tons and tons of neurons, they are all memories. It's just, it's just raw material. So the baby you, baby me, baby everybody, starts having experiences. I'm hungry, I get fed, I get washed, I go to sleep, I get burped, whatever. I start to crawl. I put my hand somewhere, I get banged and it hurts and I go, ow. I get stroked, I get soothed, I get calmed, all of those things. That sensory information is just completely going into the baby's brain. And also everything in the environment around the baby, the people, the conversations, the vibe, are we safe? Are we scared? Is there danger? Are we happy? Everything, and not just in the family, it's in the places, in the community. All of that information is just coming in 100% unfiltered. And I thought about, well, does that mean all of it gets remembered? And I think, no, not all of it gets remembered. The things that the brain pays attention to are things that happen often, things that go on for a long time, and things that are really strong. So you can have something that just, it's on drip feed, but because it's happening a lot, it gets memorized in the brain, in the body. Or you can have one really big experience, and because it's really, really strong, it gets memorized in the brain and the body. If it's just, if it happens occasionally and it's not strong, the brain's probably going, we don't care. Or it might make a synaptic connection about it, but then it's not repeated. so it doesn't get remembered. Another fact, I mean, it's a really basic fact, but I hadn't quite made the connection. See, I've made a new connection myself, that neurons make connections, right? You know, axons, dendrites, they hook up, store a memory. But unless that memory gets fired and wired again, and I know this part, you know, if you don't keep firing and wiring the memory, you're going to lose it. You know, you remember a cool fact, and then an hour later, it's like, well, what was that? If you don't bring it back, it's gone. But if you keep bringing it back, that connection gets strong, and more than that, you have the connections between the dendrites one end and the axon extensions of the other, and then you have this trunk part of the neurons called the axon. That's what the signal travels through that goes to the next set of axon extensions, and then to the other dendrites on other neurons. When a connection gets fired a lot, when that neuron gets used a lot, there's this fatty coating called myelin that gets put down the axon, and it makes the signal travel faster and stronger. So the neurons that get fired a lot get myelinated. That's the word. And so it gets stronger and it gets stronger. And I've talked about how, you know, neurons bundle together. They don't sit there. They're like spaghetti. They're alive. They're talking to each other. They're having a party. And if something gets bundled, gets fired a lot, well, then the neurons bundle together. You get what's called a neural trunk. It gets thicker. So all of that's going on in the brain. And it's super learning because all that information just comes in and is processed. And you need that super learning, you know. You might say, well, oh my God, I know what I was growing up in because I remember, and it was horrible and blah, 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 blah. And that, you know, I mean, I didn't grow up in horribleness, but there are aspects of what I grew up in that I think, oh, gee, it'd be really cool if I could have edited that out. But the reason why it is like this, if you think about, forget about our society, go back, you know, 20,000 years. We're in, you know, nature and the jungle and the savannah, and we've got to survive. This is the most effective way for a baby to learn how to be human and how to survive, how to fit into society. If you do this, this happens. If you do that, this happens. If I'm like this with that person, they behave this way. Oh, I like that, so I'll do it again. I didn't like that, so I won't do that again. It's very, very fast learning. It is super learning, and you are a genius because your brain is just soaking all this in. And if you think about what it would take to go to school and learn, like imagine if somehow you didn't know all of that, and there are people who've had that experience, you know, they have a near-death experience, they come back and they've forgotten who they are, and they don't know what, they don't know, you know, they don't know anything, it's all gone. And they have to relearn it all. And it takes years. Some of them, their kids have to tell them, well, this is how you dial the telephone, Mum or Dad. So we are geniuses, and we just super learn, soak it all in so fast because it allows us to survive. And this is another really cool fact that I learned. This is really good, the way that it works for us. Because if you are living in an environment that's really scary and dangerous, then your brain will notice all of that sensory information come in from, you know, from people and places and things and different times, and it will adapt to be better adapted to deal with that kind of environment. I mean, that's just smart. That's exactly what our cells do. You know, our cells say, oh my God, my receptors are getting hammered with this particular kind of chemical feedback from the environment outside me. I think I'd better change so I can cope with that environment better. Well, our brain is made of cells, and so it's doing the same thing. If our environment is happy and safe and secure, well, then our brain adapts to be able to make the most of that environment. And you do get physical structures. I mean, I know there's research that shows that babies that grow up with, you know, where mum is highly stressed and the environment is very stressed and they don't make good connections with their caregivers because everybody's so upset, they got a smaller forebrain, so they have less brain available actually for thinking and being rational and logical and solving problems. And the hindbrain, the cerebellum, and the back of the brain, where all the
instinctual survival stuff is just habitual there, that's bigger. Because they need to be able to react, to run away or fight or hide or whatever it is they do to survive. So, again, it might be a little bit, oh my God, this is what I grew up with. It's programming, it's hardwired, it's in there. But it does help to understand this is what we're up against. And I got to say, it's possible to change. But the reason why you can't change it by saying, I'm going to feel differently today. I mean, if you can, if you really, sometimes people just do that and they do it so strongly that they do. But that's another story. The reason why most of us can't just make up our minds and feel better is that adaptation is there, and it was best. It was what we needed to survive. And it was laid down when we were in delta brainwaves. And delta brainwaves are really slow, 0.5 to 4 cycles per second. So your brain is really 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, or maybe 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 1. Really slow. The brain, you're asleep with your eyes open when you're a baby. So everything just goes in, you're asleep. You can't argue with any of it. And so if you, in your conscious thinking brain, and when you're talking to me now, listening to me now, and you're talking to me in your head, you better believe it, you're in beta brainwaves because you're absorbing information from outside of you. Brain's waking up, it's paying attention, it's processing ideas and facts and everything. It's working a lot faster than when you're a baby and your brain's in delta. So the conscious brain that you are now, that's making choices and wanting things to be different and change and everything else, is running at, 12 to 18 to 20 to 30 cycles a second, depending on how you're feeling. But the information that's stopping you was laid down at 0.5 to 4 cycles a second. Or it was laid down in theta, which is the next brainwave. And you're in theta between age 2 and 7. And theta's between 4 and 8 cycles a second. So you're up here going ding, 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 and you're trying to change something that was laid down at a much slower rate of frequency. And you can't be up here and change this. To change this, you got to get down here. You got to slow your brain down. You've got to know how to do that. And then you've got to have tools and ways and techniques and whatever to make that change. That, by the way, is why people go to hypnosis. That isn't necessarily going to solve everything for everybody, but that's the fundamental thing, The program was put in theta. Let's go to theta and change it. So this is all, it's layers upon layers of unconscious memories. We get them from our parents and our genes. We get them from our experience inside our mother. And then we get them from everything that we absorb from our environment while we're growing up. And it goes in when our brain is very slow. And there is no thinking brain, the kind of brain that you have to go, oh, she's talking bullshit, I don't care, I don't want to listen. Or go, oh, that's interesting, I wonder if that was me, That brain wasn't there. Your brain has to be going fast enough to do that kind of thinking. So that's why children just absorb everything. And if it's normal for people to be yelling and screaming at each other, that's just that's normal. Or if it's normal for people to be kind to each other and to listen and to pay attention and, well, then that's normal. It's what goes into their brain. It's what their brain records. Whatever happens the most often is repeated. Whatever is most strong, the signal that's repeated the most often, the most strong, is what the brain remembers. And this isn't about blame. It isn't about saying, oh, it's my parents' fault. It's because of my race. I'm this kind of race, and so we have this history, and that's why I feel this way, and all of that. But it does contribute. But it isn't a reason to say that you have to stay like that, or that there's no alternative. And I find it really empowering to understand this. It's taken me a long time to be able to explain it, at least to me, as well as I do. But that's what I've been writing about. And if you've been commenting, I'm sorry I'm not replying to you. I'm not seeing anything come up, and sometimes they don't. But I always love any comments and questions, and I so appreciate you sharing your time and your interest with me. And this is an ongoing journey. I'm going to keep writing because I'm not finished. I've got 4 more brainwave states to go. And, you know, some of them are really important in terms of our unconscious memories, and others not so much. But they all have an impact. They all contribute one way or another. Some for making them and some for changing them. So, that's my rave for this week. Thank you for sharing it with me. If you are on YouTube and you did enjoy this, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate that. And if you're curious to see what the God of Me project is about, there's a link in the description. Pop over to my Patreon and see what I'm doing. It doesn't cost much to support me, and there's some bonuses when you do. So, I look forward to catching up with you next week. Until then, very much love. Bye-bye.